For Forest Lake, if we could please start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Behind you.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so before we get into, Martin, you wanted to add?
Do you have a motion to amend the agenda to add an item for a water quality report from Tyson Wood at Lakefront?
And then where would you like to add that?
I suggest we add it as item number 9. So right after review and certification of delinquent 2022 assessments, we would discuss this item there.
So we have a motion from Clerk Brooke. Do we have support?
Support?
Support from JC. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That does pass. Great, so we'll add that in there. So you get your voice today. All right, so we'll start with reviewing the posted meeting and public hearing notices. You want to cover that?
Sure. So those items were in the packet, and they cover two things. One, the actual meeting of the Lake Board, which were posted at the appropriate locations at the Township and the Water Resource Commission, and then also public hearing notices were mailed and published in accordance with the requirements for a public hearing to address the assessment for the Forest Lake roll. And those things are all in the packet under item number 2.
Perfect. Okay, so next we'll go to public comment. If anybody wants to come up to, no? Okay. All right. We will.
You don't usually take attendance, maybe note everybody's here. If you did or not.
Right, did you note that?
Attendance.
Perfect.
All members are here, and one soon-to-be member.
Yes. Exactly. All right, so speaking of that, next we go to considering the approval of appointing Effie Steele to the position of riparian with the term set to expire on February 28th. I don't know if you want to get into that. Personally, I'm very happy about this. I'm glad that Terry and the group see the value that you bring to the area because Effie gets stuff done. I will tell you, she's a good force to be reckoned with. So when you're dealing with not just this lake, but how you all intertwine, I think it's great that you have all those relationships on the other lakes too to kind of bring them together so it's not so separate anymore. So I appreciate what you bring.
We're one landscape. We have to think as a community. So I'm very happy to be in charge of my little portion of that community and to work with the others. So thank you.
Did you want to add anything of Terry?
Oh, I do. So Terry Cunahan, who is representing the HOA and lake associations that are around Forest Lake, has nominated Effie Steele to be the riparian for Forest Lake, which is the traditional process in which a riparian is nominated to the Lake Board. Ms. Steele replaces Dr. Grecken, who has served on the Forest Lake Lake Board for many years, and we thank him for his service. His term expired at between our last meeting and this meeting. So I move that the Lake Board appoint Effie Steele as the Lake riparian for a term to expire in February of 2027.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry. I'm new to Lake Boards, and I just wanted to know, what is a riparian representative and what do you do?
She's the voice of the people. So like a trustee would
Okay.
be, or a city council member. You two represent the county, we represent the township, and then Effie represents all of the lake. Riparian means anybody who has a benefit to that lake.
Or
Thank
lakefront
you.
So
owners.
yeah.
You learn
So
something
she's
new every day.
Voice of the people right there.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And sure, there are more of her than us, I can tell you that, which
Okay.
is what's, we have all private lakes here in
Got it.
Bloomfield Township, and we just help administratively do what the group wants on their lakes. So
Okay.
she's the voice of what the lake wants.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Unless you have something
There's
else
a
to
motion.
add.
I have nothing else to add.
All right. So motion by Clerk Brooke. Support by J.C. Garrison. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I don't care what they say, you're all right.
Well, I've had a little to say over the last few years, just a tad.
So next we'll go to the business meeting minutes of June 9th. We've all had a chance to look them over unless there's any changes. I'd like a motion. Motion by J.C. Garrison.
Support.
Support by Effie Steele. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? That passes. And next we come to confirming the expenditures since the last review of June 9th, 2022 to February 21st, 2023. Quick Brooke.
So quick summary behind item number 6 in the packet are the expenditures and a summary of the expenditures since our last meeting. In accordance with a standing authorization of the Lake Board, the Lake Board chairperson is authorized to pay invoices that come in accordance with budget and prior Lake Board approval. Those invoices were paid during the last several months, and this is a opportunity to review and confirm the expenditures since the last meeting of June 9th, 2022. And those expenditures are again all in the reports behind item number 6.
Do you have any questions?
Now, there was an update, by the way, one last thing. There was an update that was sent out earlier today to add an item. So when this was initially put together early last week, another invoice did come in. That invoice was added to the materials in a posting that went out this afternoon and provided each of us here at the desk as well.
Do you have any questions for Clerk Brock? Comments? No? I look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by J.C. Garrison,
Support.
support by Clerk Brook. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass. Next, we have the pre-approving of the bill issued to the Township for legal aid in the Oakland Press newspaper, legal ad, sorry, in the Oakland Press newspaper. Did you want to go ahead and go over that?
So I think the end is it's self-explanatory. There it is required for the hearing of assessment. We must publish the notice and the proposed assessments. That was done in the Oakland Press, which is a paper, really the only paper that meets the publication requirements set forth in the statute. We'd be seeing an invoice soon enough, but we figured we would take the opportunity now to pre-approve payment of that invoice.
Any questions or comments? I look for a motion. Motion by Effie Steele. I'm gonna give Angela, what's your last name?
Powell.
Angela Powell. So yeah, gotta give everybody a chance here. So we'll give a second with Angela Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Great. That also passes. So next we'll go on to our water quality report, and we have Tyson here to talk that over.
Or we're going to do the certification. So I thought we'd do the certification of
Oh,
either
I'm
way
sorry.
it works. Either
I'm
way it
sorry,
works.
I messed up. Well, you did
That's
a
all right.
motion though.
Okay, yeah,
Sorry,
so
Tyson,
we'll
if
do
you
the
can wait
certi-
one more. I put it in the wrong spot, me and my Roman numerals. All right.
So sorry about that. This is an item in the packet which contains the certification from the Treasurer's Office of Delinquencies, individuals that did not pay their assessments last year. It is also a certification of what's already occurred, which is in accordance with a standing resolution of this board authorizing the supervisor to apologize. That's my son in California. Actually, have him tune into the meeting. You can see live where I'm at.
There's no
So-
there.
These are referred to the treasurer for collection with other township taxes by the certification of delinquencies, which was happened administratively by the chairperson in the fall, and we're asking for the board to is the word certify, Mark? No, no. Confirm the report of the delinquencies. And all of those are itemized in the packet.
I just have a simple question. Do we add a fee if it has to be paid with the taxes?
It's by statute, there's penalties.
Good. Okay, thank you.
You said, you thought I was bad. So do we have any questions or comments? Any additional ones? I look for a motion. Motion by Angela Powell. Support. Second by J.C. Garrison. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That does pass. Now we have Tyson up for our water quality. Sorry about that.
Yes. First of all, I just want to say, Effie, you have taken over and been great to work with. I think you're leading the charge. So I think that's great. And then, this water quality report, I don't know if we've seen it together as a group, but I can't remember the last time we had a meeting.
Right,
Is it-
it's all,
Yeah, so I think this is fairly new to us, and we can go over this real quick. And nothing is, I guess, nothing is needed as far as any action. Anything is needed, and the whole report reflects that. Things are kind of stable as far as. See if I can down here, but so here's the big thing, which is nutrient levels are higher than we really want them. So phosphorus is it's not, I guess, higher than it has been in the past, but it's something we need to continue to look at and be mindful of in the future. Our classification here is eutrophic, which means high nutrient levels. This is a classification that comes from limnologists, limnologists are lake study people. But it's something that we want to keep an eye on. Like I said, it's not necessarily higher than, like, extremely higher than the past, but something we want to keep an eye on. So it's not where it is. I guess I'm trying to think of the word. It's not necessarily immediate action, but we need to keep an eye on it. So
Just watching it.
yeah, watch it. Yeah.
and I think the 6th page, by the way, of the report has a chart of the historical trend for phosphorus.
Yes, it does. Yes. So yeah, top this right here.
I have a question about that.
Sure. Yeah.
Is the source fertilizer?
It could be. We don't know the source. There's no way to know the source unless you do extensive testing. Because it could be things like septic tanks, could be random things that, like, if they're, I don't know what's directly.
We don't have septic tanks.
Yeah, I know you don't, but there could be random things that are coming into the lake that really, unless we test the water all the way up front, the whole watershed, there's no way to know what is the exact source. So, like, you can have sources that are like a cow farm or something that's way up field.
Or a golf course?
Yes,
We have a golf course on the lake.
I know. You have multiple around, and those can
And
be,
others
yeah,
in the
those,
area.
those can be sources, but there's no way for us to pinpoint that unless we do extensive testing. And at that point, you're looking at a lot of money. So, I mean, for testing like that, we would actually probably not do it ourselves. We would go to the state and have testing done into the watershed for these golf courses and stuff like that.
Are there recommendations we can make to our neighbors that are potential generators of this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing you can do is encourage them to not fertilize and to be careful of what they put around their water body. Besides that, there's not a whole lot you can do, especially like legally. There's not a whole lot you can force them to do. But I think having everyone be mindful of what they're doing around their water body, including gardens and stuff. I know some people put gardens down by their lake. Those even are potential introductions for phosphates and nitrates. So, yeah. I'll move on to the, let's see here. Nitrate, nitrogen, gone down over the past, like, 10 years, really. They look great. Like I said, this one, the phosphate is what phosphorus is what we're really worry about, where it's in that red area, trending upwards. But nitrogen is trending downwards, which is great. Chlorophyll is a measurement of plant growth. And so that has been trending upwards. Last year was great levels. You'll see the dot there. Last year dropped off significantly. This year, though, it was back onto the same trend line. We're hoping to see this year that chlorophyll level will once again hopefully drop. We really want that chlorophyll, that trend line, the dotted line, to be leveling off. We don't want it increasing. So, and then we have your transparency levels, which is in the target range. So transparency is something that we put a disc in the water body, and we see, when it drops off. So we're at about 10 feet now, which is pretty great. To compare it to like Island Lake, has like a 3-foot transparency level, which is poor. But your lake has been, of course, you can see in the past, it's been pretty good. So it's not something to worry about. But that transparency level is all dependent on things like dissolved solids. Like say you have it's basically mucky water. So if you have things like construction going on that filter in, and things you can't control really, those things affect transparency. But
Are you worried that it's trending down?
really no, because it's been fairly stable for the last 10 years. And especially when we look at things like dissolved solids, which is down here. Okay. Those are, and conductivity also measures things like salts and stuff like that. Those are both good, and those affect transparency. So
Great.
no, we're not.
Good. Thanks.
Then your pollutants that we test, sulfate, chloride, and fluoride, have all been within. Well, sulfate has been great. Fluoride has been great. Chloride is one that this is where the salt comes in. Chloride is a salt.
Right.
So actually with these numbers, we would think that transparency would be higher or lower, I should say. And total dissolved solid should be higher too, but we haven't seen that. We've seen chloride be outside of our target range, but it's not a pollutant that is totally affecting the lake, like overall. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's there, but it's not making the lake, I guess, a danger, if that makes sense. It's not, I shouldn't use the word danger, but it's
Not
not.
impacting the overall health of the lake.
Yes, correct. Yeah,
It's not impacting the transparency, not necessarily the health.
right. Yeah.
It could be affecting the health of the lake.
Yeah.
Is it? That's the question,
So,
I guess.
well, yeah. So, I mean, it is overall health. The lake is healthy,
Yes.
but this is something we want to look at in the future and keep tracking. You can see by the graph, it is always in the outside the target range. And so, yeah, I think we just need to make sure it doesn't get outside too much that it affects the overall health, where it's not a safe place to be. and that's, it's why we're doing what we're doing. So, yeah. Sorry.
What can we do to reduce the amount of salt in the water?
I can promise if you tell us not to salt the roads, I'll get a lot more complaints about that when we have accidents. Because I'm assuming that helps.
Well, yeah,
Like,
that was going to be my first answer.
considering
So
how dangerous that road is, if I ever didn't
Yeah.
salt that road, I'd be in big trouble.
that's literally my only answer. So there's
Now, since we don't have high salt levels,
chlorides are also in fertilizers.
that's what I was actually aiming at. You don't
Yeah.
see this in a lot of lakes, and
Right.
we do plow
Yeah,
and
and
salt
you
every
have
road.
golf courses that are
Yeah.
like you
Lots of
mentioned.
fertilizers.
Yeah. So
Wanna
that's
make sure that got
the
out
best thing to do is keep that in mind. I don't know if anyone will listen to you, but
Could you draft us a friendly letter that
For
we
golf
can
courses.
share with the POA owners,
okay.
which is all 3 lakes,
Yes. Yep.
and then any additional
Yeah.
golf
and
courses that you may
Yeah.
think belong in our watershed?
We actually do Forest Lake Country Club's pond, and we have talked to them before about their fertilizer use, and I don't know if it's necessarily something they're going to listen to us about, but
But we'd like an official document
Sure, yeah.
making that request of all our neighbors.
Yeah, not just I would
Right,
think
all
even
our
there's probably
neighbors.
some neighbors doing this.
All our neighbors and why.
yep. Yeah, I can do that for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone has an interest in that these bodies of water
Yeah.
maintaining their health.
Yeah. And like I said, it's, unless you do extensive testing, it's, something we can't figure out where it's coming from until you do that testing. But as long as these people will work with us and,
And it sounds like that would fix both of your high numbers, your phosphorus
Yes.
and your
yeah.
salt.
So
Not
they're all
just one.
connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every
And if
single-
there are alternatives that
Yeah.
you can recommend, that would be nice also.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I can do that.
If, in case we get pushback.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So we'd like to make, a recommendation that's achievable.
Right. And I don't really necessarily have a recommendation besides stopping.
Okay, well, then
So,
that's what the message is going to
that's
have to
the
be.
recommendation is to stop or make changes on where fertilizer goes. You should be stopping 15 feet before any water body. And I know a lot of times they don't follow that, whether they're a golf course person or a third-party company. I know they don't always stop there. So, but I can put that in writing and we can send it out and go from there.
Great,
Okay.
thank you. Thanks, Tyson.
Then I think this is pretty much the end of the report. So, do you
Thank
have any
you.
questions or anything for me?
Just for the group, we haven't done it in the past. I don't know, maybe in 40 years ago or 30 years ago, they were doing it, but certainly not since I've lived there in the last 11 years. We have not tested for E. coli, and we're going to test for E. coli this year. I've asked that we test for it.
And have you checked to see, I know that DNR, is that only because they have a public spot that the DNR and the, okay.
Right. I'm not aware of
'Cause
them
they do
testing
some
Forest
of the
Lake.
state-
So
okay.
I know Island and Lower Long both do E. coli testing. Forest Lake is the only one that we don't do it on.
Okay.
And I asked why, and nobody had an answer. So I'd like at least once for us to.
Now, is that
Test.
in your budget? Because we
Yes, it
haven't
is in our
discussed- I
budget.
was gonna say,
Yes,
yours-
it's on the
Yes, we
contract, yeah.
budgeted.
Yes.
Yours is the leanest, scariest,
Yeah.
lowest fund balance.
Yeah.
You have one problem outside of $500, and you are back here with a new assessment.
Oh, I know.
So
It wasn't
I know.
supposed to be that way, Danny. It
not supposed to.
It wasn't supposed to be that way. It was a surprise to me also today.
Yeah. So I think it was explained to me before that you had done testing in the past, but it was so you guys were doing it yourself. So this was explained to me by Terry that you guys were doing it by yourself in the past, and it was a whole situation of you had to wait, and you didn't really have the tools to finish it out. So that was the explanation that I got. I don't know if that's
I'm unaware, so
okay. All right. Fair
I would
enough.
just like to see some
an
official
Yes. Okay.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Yeah, right.
Anything else?
So, yeah, no, we budgeted. I
I
asked
just
for
want
it
to make sure,
earlier.
your fund
Yeah, it's on
balance
there.
is outside of the statute. You're so low. Before that, but we'll talk about that in the budget section.
Okay,
That without that was still too low.
It's in our contract due this year.
But that's
So-
good that it's already in.
Yeah. All right.
And budget.
Because if it wasn't going to get. All right. Thank
Anything
you
else?
so much for your report.
Good. Thank you.
It was very helpful. Thanks. All right. So next we'll go to considering approval of the Forest Lake improvement budget. And is that going to be Effie doing that or?
oh,
Or
no,
Martin.
please no. Martin,
Well, I
all
will,
you.
Effie, I'm sure you'll have stuff to add, and I encourage you to do so. I'm sure you don't need encouragement, but there's going to be some things on here. This budget is a little different than past budgets, and the items concerning this budget are behind what's is labeled on our agenda as item 9, but it's actually now item 10. The Mike's Clearwater Harvesting is an area, he's been providing services on the lake for a while. He is the least expensive option as far as other weed harvesters go in the area. There is a slight increase in this area. It's almost $5,000 out of 30, so it's more than slight, but some of this has to do with a request for additional services associated with shore cleanups after each of his harvests.
Correct.
Lake Pro invoice has also gone up. This has to do with increase in their costs associated with inflation and additional E. coli testing. And was there additional money in there that I initially thought of for Phragmites potentially as a placeholder?
No,
No? Okay.
no, they've upped their fee and they're including the E. coli test. So
Got it.
their expenses have gone up. The E. coli is only a very small portion of that.
Another change is that added a line, it's a placeholder for insurance. Each of the lake boards have never carried its own insurance for directors and officers liability type of insurance, and insurance for the lake board itself properly. And that's been added as an item. We have asked for quotes for insurance for all of the lake boards, including Forest Lake. And when we receive that back in, we'll report into the board. The rest of the items are pretty consistent with past, budget year and historical expenses. And what has overall changed? So this budget planned for a $1,000 per year spend down from the fund balance, and with the fund balance remaining, it would have been roughly around $7,000. Oh, sorry about that. Would have been roughly around $7,000. We have a new invoice that came in since this budget was put together and the materials were prepared last week, and that invoice is for legal fees associated with a workers' compensation claim brought against one of the vendors on Forest Lake. And the Lake Board was named and had to offer a defense to that. And so everyone received an updated budget package showing the fund balance, which is now at $6,300. And we spend down during this 4-year budget plan $4,000. That will leave a fund balance of little over $2,300, which I understand, I guess, is
I have a couple
10% is the goal, is the
Well, no, it's not a
statutory
goal.
minimum.
It's a requirement that they should be at 18,000 to 27,000 by state law. That's what.
The statute
That's why it's
indicates,
freaking us out that you're so low.
the statute indicates that there should be a 10 to 15% reserve built into the budget. So
So I,
Of the annual expense or of the 4-year?
Well, either
budget's a
way,
4-year budget.
it's a 4-year project. The-
10% of the 4-year total is a different number than 10% of the annual
The-
amount.
The project is a 4-year project of $183,540.
Right.
The 10 to 15% would be for that project time period. There should be that target for the reserves.
So even without the surprise, we were only at 1/3 of the required state fund balance.
In the past, with the lake boards, some had grossly inflated reserves amounts. And so there had been a practice of reducing the assessments to reduce that reserve amount to the proper amount. This one, it's probably low enough now that we don't need to do that anymore and probably shouldn't.
No, we should build it up.
Yeah, we should not, we should no longer be reducing the reserve. I mean, this
Right,
is,
like that $1,000.
this is in the ballpark of where it should be. But what I'm saying is for the 4-year project, when you're talking about the total project cost, there should be a 10 to 15% reserve built into that cost estimate. And then once you have that total amount, then you take a look at what your existing reserve is and you adjust it from there. But
So I guess some of my questions, because this is really uncomfortable, because again, it's even before one surprise, you guys were 1/3 of where you should have been on that, and we got hit with the surprise that was a lot more than $500. So knowing that, what I'm scared about is there's a plan to even take away from our reserve. So then I started asking questions of, so there's a partial benefit on canals. So does that mean that we don't treat the canals, and that's why they're not a full benefit? Because
They get treated. They get
So we
treated.
treat
And we
this.
treat the canals more than we treat the lake. So
why are they not a full benefit?
I have the same question, why that, or a higher percentage.
Or at least like a 75% or something.
Or at least,
What, 60% now?
or part of the treatment fee.
Roughly 1/3.
You know, it could be delegated that way. I don't know, but we're all new to this, so we're going to have to figure it out.
Right, that's, yeah.
And also, as a neighbor, when I put my property owner hat on, and I hear, oh, we have an extra $6,300 legal fee because somebody sued the harvesting company for workman's compensation. That's the surprise. So as an owner, it's like, why am I paying this?
Well, just,
It's the question. It's like, oh, we got sued, you know, well, why didn't our supplier take care of his business so we wouldn't be named a party? And then it's a surprise to all of us that there's a $6,300 legal fee because the township decided to take care of it legally on their own as a representative of the board.
yeah.
So, but the neighbors are finding out about it
So I
today.
just want to clarify, the township is not, I am a lake board chair on the
Right,
lake
right,
who
right.
administratively has to.
Right.
Just, you know, we get sued all the time as a township for
Right.
frivolous things. For example, the lake board, the Wabeek Lake Board is being sued because somebody decided to sue them. We have to pay that bill. A township is being sued because somebody decided to sue them. Anytime you're sued, you have to pay your legal fees.
Right, but
So that's not
There's
the
no
township, it's
notice.
the lake board.
yeah, we're the board, but I'm saying there's no notice to the neighbors. Oh, by the way, this is going on. Don't be surprised when during our annual meeting, instead of asking you to pay another $200 a year, we're not going to ask you to pay $300 or $400 because this is going on. And I just think we need to be a little more transparent with everybody while these things are going on.
And another good thing is if you had a fund balance, you wouldn't notice that as much. Like when somebody had a bigger issue, which is costing them a lot more than $6,000 to fight right now, they had a really healthy, much bigger balance that they just pulled from. Like, people hate that we carry a balance with our water and sewer, but one problem on Long Lake cost us $3 million. If we didn't have that, all your rates would have gone up. So that's why the fund balance is so important. You're noticing it because you're not safe on your fund balance.
I agree.
So it's much more noticeable.
I agree.
And that's what scares me, is seeing how much people are suing everybody nowadays. And sadly, you have to fight it. Like, I cannot wait for these to be done, because there's going to be a slight public shaming podcast that I'm putting out there to say your frivolous lawsuit cost these people $13,000. Your frivolous lawsuit cost $1.3 million to the cost of water and sewer. And until people really hear that who they're suing are us as residents, they're not going to stop. And that's what's frustrating. So sadly, the lawsuits are increasing, which is why we need the insurance against this stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is something new for us this year, is the insurance.
Yeah.
Number 2, the legal fees from the lawsuit.
Yeah.
So we are going to have to build up our reserves, and we're going to have to look at the allocation on the canal.
We
So,
wanna
by the
table
way,
the
just to know, certainly we could, just to know that, I mean, this lawsuit was just filed. I became aware of it earlier this year. Should have picked the phone and called you. Seemed to be a minor matter as a workers' comp case. And we have a strong defense because we're not an employer. We don't even qualify as an employer under the act. So the legal bill only came in last week, and that just after we prepared all these materials. And so it came to my attention on Monday. Today's what, Tuesday? Well, actually came to my attention over the weekend, and then started working on it on Monday. So yes, I could have made a call sooner. Should have made a call sooner. It seemed like a fairly minor matter until I saw the bill. And the overall fund balance amount, has always been tight on Forest Lake. Of course, when I say always, I've only sat here for 2 years. We've only been sitting here for the last 2 years, so that's our horizon. The work comp case came up against the weed harvester, I guess, in 2017, but again, we only learned about it when the Lake Board was brought into this case just earlier
They were
this
sued
year.
in 2017, not this year.
The weed harvester was
The original
sued.
claim was 2017.
Right.
Workers' comp claim.
We're just hearing about it now.
I was gonna say, I literally just.
We're just hearing about it now. So, but that's where we end up getting surprised. And it's part of as you've all both identified, running a very lean fund balance ends up accentuating the issue. We were actually brought in at the very last minute, so there was a hearing on the matter where counsel had to appear or risk being defaulted. Within days after we were actually served with the item. So it's been a very bang bang kind of thing.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
It occurred in 17. Why did it take so long? Is that just how things kind of operate? I'm just
No, we
asking a
usually get
question.
served like very quickly after.
The original claim was not made against the Lake Board.
Oh,
Yeah.
We were added pursuant to a statutory claim by another party that had been added.
okay.
So the initial claim by the individual was made in 2017. The claim against the Lake Board and our being joined in the action was, I believe it was in January. I don't remember the exact date when we were added.
Okay.
We tend, as a lake board and then as a township and even the county, you tend to get added at the end when they're not getting what they want from who they really should be suing.
Got it.
So, for example, there's another, there's a homeowners association that's in fighting with their neighbor. They're not getting what they wanted, so now they're suing the RCOC, the township, and the lake board. We all have to pay fees, unfortunately.
The reason the Lake Board was added is the structure of the workers' comp system. If the employee, the injured party, is not fully compensated by their immediate employer, they move up the ladder,
Got it.
so to speak.
Okay.
The policy apparently is that the injured party needs to be compensated.
Got it.
Understandable, but so it was research. There was delving into medical records. I mean, I can. If you want to go into closed session, I can give you a full background of it. But
No, I don't need none. I was just asking that little quick question. I'm okay. It happened prior to me getting here, but I just, for clarity, I just wanted to ask the little question. No,
Yeah, no,
none of that is needed.
Usually, if it is something that we actually are involved in, we would know something's going on and kind of be prepped that, oh gosh, somebody might come. You know, so to get something out of the blue like this is not normal, and
But
it's
I
usually a
have,
sign.
I have had a personal experience. It's legal where something happened with a family member, and then again, they filed a claim. It was in a place, and then they did so much, and then they wanted to make sure other things got taken care of. So then they sued the actual. So it's something. I'm just saying, this is my personal understanding of what you just said to me. It just, that's the first thing that clicked in my mind as when they work up the ladder to try to get their money, like the full compensation of what they're trying to get taken care of. So, yeah, that's all I was saying.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
technically, since we're not an employer, he still has to fight saying that we're not an employer.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is very frustrating. So
Thank you
that's
for the
why we're
clarity.
waiting till all these are done, and then there will definitely be something put out there about how frivolous lawsuits just hurt residents, because we're residents too. So when people, sue the township, they don't realize that they're literally suing all of us too.
Yeah.
So it gets very frustrating with frivolous lawsuits. It's very frustrating.
Sure.
So what do you guys think? Is this something that you feel comfortable moving forward with, spending down a balance that's kind of low? Not sure if we're assessing people the way they should. Like, do we think we should go forward? Do we think we should table it?
Could I make a
Renotice?
suggestion? There seems to be some question about the overall budget. There also seems to be some question about how the assessments are evaluated.
Yeah.
You are set for approving the assessment roll today. One of the options you have, if you have questions about how the roll was calculated, you have the ability to send it back to the assessor with comment and have it looked at again, or perhaps you can either adjourn the hearing or just send this back to the assessor, ask him to take a look at it again, and maybe have him present the option. I would indicate, though, that there was some comments about who's receiving most of the costs of the services. The assessment really doesn't focus on that. The assessment process is what the benefit to the properties, and the rationale for a different level of assessment between a lakefront property owner and a canal front, or somebody who's even off the lake with just access to the lake. Different tiers are established because it's felt the direct contact with the lakefront property owners are receiving the most benefit from a healthy lake. The canal owners, not quite as much because they're not right on the lake. And then the backlot owners that may have access to a lake typically would enjoy a third tier lower. So that's kind of the rationale for the assessment, not based upon the cost of the service itself, but based upon the value added to the properties as a result of the service.
So so that's the way that the assessor does it. Are you allowed to then look at, and I know that in a lot of areas they don't treat, or I shouldn't say this, but I believe there are some lakes that don't treat canals as much because it's so expensive, and they do focus on the main lake. Considering it sounds like a lot of the cost is in the canals, are you allowed to adjust assessments based on where? So not that everyone gets a full, but maybe you are actually getting a little more of a benefit because they're spending more time and money in your area.
I guess what I'm saying, and I wasn't describing the assessment process for this particular lake, I was just answering the question that it's based upon the value added to the properties. That's the basis for an assessment. If you have questions about that, they'd probably be better posed to the assessor. And if there's issues that you want to bring to the assessor's attention, you should do that, and he can take a look at the assessment roll. And the major thing is he needs to be able to justify his calculations. If there is a challenge in the tax tribunal, he needs to establish why he chose that particular assessment. So if there are issues, they would be addressed by the assessor if you want them to take a look at it. The budget is more your concern. on how you want to proceed just on a policy basis.
Well, but that's part of it. You can't approve a budget that you don't think the assessment can cover. And it may
Like I
not
said,
be that we change the assessment. It might be the overall assessment goes up. Like it may not be changing percentages. It might be, hey, this isn't enough money for what you need.
And I understand that, and if it is going to go up, that would require another publication. Because if you're
Public hearing.
increasing, if it was decreasing the assessment, you could proceed with it. But if you're going to be increasing potentially the assessments, you need to have another public notice.
Right.
And another public hearing.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What about a compromise? What if I know this is a 3-year budget, 4-year budget, 4-year budget. What if we approve for this year, and in this coming year, we look at all that, whether it has to be overall, where is the money going? Because this isn't just about what is my house worth on the lake versus my house on the canal. It's I'm spending this much money to treat the canal and to treat the lake. So maybe that has to be looked at differently. But I'm not an assessor. I can't make that, it has to be obviously a discussion from experts, how we include that amount. And we approve this year, but look at it this year and come back next year with a different budget.
Since that's reducing and not adding years, could you do something like that?
Well, in that sense, you're not actually reducing the assessment, you're just shortening the project.
Right.
So that would be fine. Yeah, you could do, rather than adopting the resolution as drafted, the resolution would be amended to, if I can find it real quick here. Yeah, rather than having this, you just adopt the amended resolution to say, no, this is 2 years. I'm sorry, I got the wrong. We'll just amend the assessment to make it only for the 2023-24 season, rather than for the 23-24 through 26-27 season.
Right.
That way we don't have to rush so much into finding a solution.
Right.
Gives you time to talk to everybody, not just the assessor, but if he determines, no, you can't change the assessment, then we have to talk, okay, well, we might need to raise the assessment. So
Right.
it's a discussion
Good
you should
idea.
have
I
with
like
the
the
others
idea.
on the lake as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm sorry, I can't hear. I can't find out every other word that some of you said. What did you just say?
I was just agreeing that I think it's fair to take time, only do 1 year, and allow people on the lake to discuss, as well as talk with the assessor, time to figure out what the other years would be.
What do you mean by people on the lake, like the residents?
Just so you know, we don't normally have this kind of discussion, but she'll be able to talk to you offline of what we're talking to. So I think that's a very fair, very good negotiation on making sure we don't delay any
Exactly.
treatments you need for this season, but realize that this maybe isn't the best long-term solution.
Correct.
Yeah. Would there be any motion made for that? Anybody willing to make a motion?
I'll make that motion. Yes, Mark.
Oh,
What is the motion being
oh, wait,
made?
we have to actually open up the, so
Yeah,
you're
we have
saying
to have
go
the
through the
public
full
hearing.
public hearing?
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah,
right
we
now
need-
it'll be a motion to accept this 1-year budget,
Right,
and then we would move on to that, okay.
right.
So right now the motion is about the accepting the budget for this current year that's presented.
Correct. I motion that we accept the budget for 23-24
Perfect.
as is.
So we will take that motion by Effie Steele.
Is that, and I'm sorry.
So we're not on the public hearing yet, we're
No,
still
no,
on.
no, my question is the budget still including the $1,000 deduction from the reserve?
For just this year, right?
Just this
For
year.
just this year, we're doing what was, I know.
Okay.
It's outside my comfort
just
zone.
wanted to
We are
clarify.
negotiating. Yeah, so it'd be just for this year, so we don't stop, get in the way of any of your spring issues that we have going forward, but knowing that that's not a good choice long-term.
Correct.
To spend that down. So we have a motion by Effie Steele. Do we have support?
Support.
Support by J.C. Garrison. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so now we'll go on to the actual public hearing. So we have the purpose, we'll start with the purpose of the hearing assessment. Do you want to go through that?
This is a typical spot on here. We indicate to those here and watching that we have a public hearing of assessment to consider the assessment role for Forest Lake riparians, and I don't believe there are any lake access here, so the Forest Lake riparians to support the project budget as just passed. And the community was noticed of that proposal through a mailing and through a publication.
So now we'll move on to the actual hearing of assessment. We'll start with the presentation of the assessment role. Would you like to handle that, since it's Effie's first?
Sure. So behind what is in the packet, item 11, is the assessment role that was prepared. Consistent with the past 15 or more years, the benefits are assigned as one benefit for lakefront owners and essentially 2/3 of a benefit, or 0.63381, for canal front owners. And the dollars are assigned accordingly. So the assessment for this current year, 23-24, would be $992.16 for a lakefront riparian, and $628.84 for a canal front riparian. And that's consistent with the role that was published in the paper and sent to the homeowners.
Next, we'll open the actual hearing of assessment. We've all received letters. Do you want to say how many we received? We don't read them out loud, but did we receive letters?
No.
I don't think I did on this link.
No, that did not receive the emailed or phone call public comment concerning the mailing.
Okay. So there is none to add there, but we would like to open the floor to public comment. So if anybody does want to come up, we will close the floor to, because this is the time to ask questions. No? Just go ahead and say your name and address. And
Carol Davies, 1490 Lockridge. This change of the budget, that you're just going to do it for this year, I'm a little concerned with that, because it can only mean that it's going to go up when you reassess. I mean, I came here thinking, and I got this letter thinking, okay, this is what it's going to be for 4 more years. And now it seems
there is a chance that you would have to fit the state requirement of, this is not enough to fit the state requirement of your budget. There is a chance that yes.
I understand that, but what I don't understand is how you can just at this hearing decide to change
Yeah, go ahead.
that it's only going to be for this season.
The budget that was just approved is just for this year.
It's a 1-year budget.
Every year, the Lake Board needs to approve a new budget for each year.
Okay.
The only thing that's been done here is that the existing budget has been approved for just this season, this year. And the only change that's been made is, rather than adopting a 4-year project, the Lake Board is contemplating adopting a 1-year project.
Okay.
So, and then in the future, if there is an increase in the budget and an increase in the assessment, it will require another public hearing. So you'll get notice of the next, if there is an increase, you'll get notice of it, and there will be an opportunity to speak to the Lake Board in a public hearing.
So what you're saying is, even if you hadn't changed this for just this season, you still would have, you still would have had a hearing for the following year, even though I was under the understanding this was going to be for the next 4 years.
Yeah, what I'm saying, there's two things you're talking about. You're talking about the budget, and you're talking about the assessment. The assessment requires a public hearing in order to adopt a new assessment role. rather than do a 4-year project with one assessment roll covering 4 years, the Lake Board's contemplating just a 1-year project and a 1-year assessment roll. That's what requires the public hearing. The budget, which is adopted each year by the Lake Board, is also done at a public meeting, and you receive notice of each meeting, and the budget will be in the meeting packet. It's not a formal public hearing, but you have the ability to appear at that public meeting and comment on the budget.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So seeing no more public comment, we'll go ahead and close the public comment, which closes our hearing. And we'll move on to considering approval of the resolution confirming Forest Lake's assessment roll for the fiscal years. So this one would need a modified, if we decide to go down to 1 year, then it would be a modified motion that we're looking for.
So we have in the packet again the draft resolution based upon a 4-year budget and a 4-year assessment. If we were to change to 1 year, which is being considered, we would need to change just even starting the first paragraph and every paragraph thereafter. When we refer to a 4-year, it's a 1-year assessment, and the total project cost, instead of being the 4-year total, it's a single year total of roughly $44,000.
Well,
Rather than
I'm sorry, Martin. There's actually 2 numbers that need to change. Initially in the recitations, you're talking about the project cost, which would be your budget of $45,543.70, and then in the resolution where it's addressing first the project cost estimate would be the $45,000, and under paragraph 1, and then it also addresses the SAD amount, which is the $44,885. I can show you. I've marked it up already. If you
Okay, great. Great. Yes, and the numbers are different because there's the fund balance adjustment. 44,885 is in the recitations, not the resuscitations. Oh my gosh. Each of the items thereafter, when they reference numbers, would refer to the project cost and the assessment costs, as we've just discussed. Those details we'll adjust after this meeting, but consistent with that.
So do we have any discussions, comments, questions about?
So just so I'm clear, I want to say that we're proposing a confirmation of a special assessment, 1 year in duration for this current coming year, project cost of $45,855, and an assessment amount generating $44,855, and the full benefit amount is $992.16, and the 2/3 benefit amount is $628.84, and that's the motion.
Is there any discussion before a motion?
One proposed addition to the motion is that the exhibit attached to the resolution would also be amended to eliminate columns 2024, 2025, and 2026.
Correct.
So.
Is there any other discussion before we go into that? Okay, so we'll have a motion by Clerk Brooke.
The only other thing I could add is that by the way, just so we know, I mean, sometimes we have 4-year assessments, sometimes we have 2 years, sometimes we have 1. So we did a Gilbert Lake 1-year assessment recently. Right. Forest Lake's last assessment was only a 2-year assessment. Some lakes do 4-year assessments. So it's consistent with how this happens on occasion. And this will give us the opportunity to work on the budget for a longer term assessment starting the following year at whatever numbers is determined appropriate.
Correct.
We have a Clerk Brooke motion on the table. Anybody support?
Support.
Support by Effie Steele. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So it does pass. Great. So now we have, is there any other business that anyone has on the lake?
My only business is I want to welcome our two members.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining this board. It's always exciting. And we welcome your input and contributions for the next several years. 4 years, right? You're elected as commissioner for 4 years?
No, just 2.
Just 2.
24 is the first 4-year term. So
okay.
we got to run
So
again.
we'll see you for at least 2 years, maybe many more after that.
Yeah, I'm planning on it.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Perfect. So with that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Motion by Clerk Brooks, support by Commissioner Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank